To that end, I promised that I would fully devote my labor to achieving for myself and my fellow citizens in Iran that treasured dream of desire of the many millions around the globe, and which so many in the West take for granted, like the act of breathing. I speak of freedom. As the founder and executive director of the Iranian Railroad for Queer Refugees, or IRQR, I consider the work I'm doing today to be an investment in that very freer and brighter tomorrow for all Iranians in my now troubled country. I launched the IRQR in October 2008 after being involved first with the Persian Gay and Lesbian Organization in Iran and then the Iranian Queer Organization IRQO in Canada. One of the primary goals of my previous organization, IRQR's predecessor, was to increase the global level of awareness of the abysmal Iranian queer human rights situation and the horrible persecution of queers that occur daily in Iran. We at the IRQR also hope to provide a steady stream of news and information about homosexuality and transgendered individuals through the internet into Iran, and I believe we have had great success in doing that. For the past 2 years, the new organization, the IRQR, has been more focused on assisting queer Iranian refugees, helping them flee Iran, providing support to them while they were still in transition countries like Turkey, assisting them in finding their way through the harrowing route maze and they must traverse in order to gain asylum, and helping them get settled into and learn to cope with their new lives in gay-friendly democratic Western countries. There are still many more queer refugees from Iran who have not yet contacted us but desperately need our help. I should explain our name, the Iranian Railroad for Queer Refugees. It's based on the 19th century Underground Railroad, the informal network of secret travel routes and safe houses utilized by Southern black slaves in order to escape to freedom in the northern states and Canada, aided by abolitionists who were sympathetic to their cause. In the same way, the IRQR has been providing aid and assistance, legal, financial, or other ways, to Iranian queer asylum seekers who fled Iran due to their sexual orientation, just as I was once forced to do. I and others will continue this work under the backing of the IRQR. We are now working to simplify our structures and focus exclusively on supporting Iranian queers in fleeing Iran, processing their asylum application, preventing their deportation back to Iran, and maximizing their safety in transit. Most Iranian queer refugees are scattered through Europe, primarily in the Netherlands, Sweden, Germany, Switzerland, and Norway. Many also lived in the United Kingdom, where the British government has been extremely reluctant to grant permanent asylum status to queer Iranian refugees. Not long ago, 2 Iranian refugees living in the UK, Hossein Nasiri and Israfil Shiri, committed suicide after receiving deportation order back to Iran, where they face imprisonment, torture, and most likely violent death. Their death at their own hands brings me back to you, my dearest departed friend. It was on October 6, 2006, that I was invited to the second session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, Switzerland. I spoke out on behalf of all of my friends like you whose voice needed to be heard. A year later, in October 2007, Iranian President Ahmadinejad famously said at Columbia University, "We do not have homosexuals in Iran." It prompted me to ask myself, but what do you think I am? And what of all my friends that are condemned to silence? What about you, my dearest departed friend to whom I write? But my duty was speaking out, so I gave many interviews to mainstream media about the situation faced by Iranian queers, and it was a great publicity. You could say that thanks to Ahmadinejad, the cause of the Iranian queers came out of the closet. It was now in conversations around kitchen table all around the world. I regret, however, that you my dearest departed friend, are not with us to feel the happiness of being recognized. Since being granted asylum myself in Canada in 2006, I've been able to most fortunate to have made several international trips to help queer refugees by building relationships with other international organizations. I'm very happy I've been able to build such a strong relationship with the UNHCR, which is now fully aware of the terrible Iranian queer human rights situation and of IRQR's work in the cause. On each of my trips overseas, I've been able to secure international refugee protection status for an increasing number of Iranian queer asylum seekers. I've spent many hours listening to the desperate, tragic, and heartbreaking stories of Iranian queers, all of which makes me very concerned for their situation and future. My dedication to these refugees is fueled by my own experience as a queer Iranian exile in Turkey. It was the most difficult experience of my life, to suddenly find myself in an unexpected situation in a hostile country with no money and no personal safety or security for over a year. I will never forget the day in Turkey when I was walking with Amir, another gay Iranian refugee who had been tortured and flogged in Iran, when we were suddenly chased down the street by a homophobic crowd. They physically beat us with the clear intent to murder us. My shoulder was dislocated. Nobody helped us. No police came to our assistance. People just stood around watching as we were beaten simply for being gay refugees in their country. That nightmarish experience is seared into my memory. I will never forget it as long as I live. It is why I dedicated myself to speeding up the processing of queer and other queer refugees in queer-unfriendly countries, and to help LGBTs attain asylum and freedom in tolerant third country as soon as possible. And you know that I, too, have a dream. My dream is that one day, the rights of all queers will be recognized and respected everywhere. That one day no one will be executed, tortured, arrested, imprisoned, isolated, or disowned by their families and communities merely for the crime of being queer. I dream of the day when my and other innocent Iranians queers will not be legal cause to deprive us of our fundamental human rights. That is the day that no one committed suicide on the basis of their sexual orientation like you did, my dearly departed friend. That is my dream and greatest wish for myself and for all the voiceless in Iran who cannot speak for themselves. And although they have not chosen me as their voice, I've chosen to be theirs as they suffer in their self-imposed voids of silence. They cannot speak their conscience in today's Islamic Republic of Iran without fear of terrible reprisal from the authorities, so I must speak out on their behalf. My own conscience dedicates to no less. I declare this dream of mine for all. I will repeat it loudly and often, and hope one day soon to achieve this dream for all of my fellow citizens in Iran that I love and once called home. I hope to do so again in Iran one day soon. Iran is not merely where I am from. It is who I am. Again, I miss you, and you will be remembered forever. I'm fond of the month of October, since it has been to be a time that we achieve a lot of, especially October the 6th. I would like to name today after you, the Memorial Day for all Iranian queers who are not with us today. Yours, Arsham Parsi.